Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tutorial Time. Today we are going to be going through the plans and the know-how for building your own gaming table. I've wanted to give this to you guys for a while. I just haven't had the time to actually make sure that the plans were as rock solid as possible. So without further ado, let's get started.
Handyman!
This might work better. Yeah, that might work actually a lot better. Hey, there we go. Lots of light now. Okay. I'm going to be walking you guys through all of the steps as best I can with building your own table if you have the know-how. There's a link in the description below for these plans. You can follow along. I believe there are 3 pages. The first page has all the parts. There we go. Okay, you see that? It says the dimensions and then it has A for base. So each letter corresponds with the actual piece. Like for instance, these pieces are H. Those are for short fold-outs. Make sure you label everything and label it the way that you want it to fit on the table, just with a quick pencil, because you're not going to see it when you stain it. Just put a little A or a little G1, H, V, whatever, and put it like face up. So that way you know, like, hey, this is the way that this is, like, you're going to be able to see it. Let's get started, guys. Oh, one thing I did want to mention before I started. A lot of these dimensions, some of them are scalable and some of them are not scalable. So if you want to build something very similar to this table and you wanted to finagle the dimensions a little bit to meet your needs, you can do that. And I'm going to try to specify which dimensions are scalable and which ones are not as I continue on. And when you're building this, also take it with a grain of salt. All of the stuff that we built, I had to kind of tweak on the fly. One of the things that we did at the very beginning of the video was my friend, she was, while I was like cleaning up, you can see her in the background and she's kind of like dimensioning everything. And when she was dimensioning everything, I basically gave her this piece of paper and I said, I need you to make all of the dimensions for everything with a little bit of a, with a little bit of a gap between each piece, so that when I cut it with a circular saw, the dimensions were going to be what they actually were. What I highly suggest you do, which is what I wish I would have done before, is you cut out the first piece. Once you have it cut out and you have it ready to go, then you make dimensions off of that piece. Most of the dimensions are going to stay the same. So each sheet, there are a couple of things that we used. We bought 2 3/4 inch pieces of plywood. These 3/4 inch pieces, they were sanded, they were ready to go. They were basically furniture grade. You can buy whatever kind of grade you want, but these were just furniture grade. I got them from Lowe's. The second sheet that is on the materials list is for the 1/2 inch piece. Same kind of material, furniture grade plywood. You can use pine, oak, maple, whatever floats your boat. And then that one was the 1/2 inch piece. This was more so for the overhangs. This one was for the elevated board that was on top. Alright, let's see if I can do this. Okay, so you got your instructions, A. So basically what you... This isn't gonna work. Oh. Well, you know what? I used to be a teacher, so let's make this work. Okay, so basically what you're gonna do is if you're looking at the instructions, which is this page right here, you've got 1, ooh, Sharpie sucks. Okay, you've got 1, 2, 3, oh man, how do you do 4? 4, 5, ooh, that's backwards, 5, and then 6, 6, nope, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? So if you're starting from 1, you've got piece A. You're gonna put that down on the ground, or you're gonna put it on some kind of a level, a table, anything really, and then you're going to attach the 2 B pieces. Both pieces of this are the exact same size. They are going to have cuts in them right here, right here, right here, and right here, and those are for the storage spaces down below. And then you've got piece C1. C1 has a cut in it. These are the short wall pieces. Both C2 and C1 are going to have cuts in them right here and right here. okay? Again, this is also for storage. So what you're gonna do is you're going to attach all of the pieces together, and again, take the dimensions so that everything comes out according to the piece that you just cut. And I was saying with the B pieces and the C2 pieces, okay? If you wanted to do it this way so that this was the corner, that way you don't actually see any of the plywood. I think that would look really slick, and if you have a miter saw or you're really good with a circular saw and you want to try to make that work, go for it. I highly encourage it. I think it would look really, really awesome. So you're going to butt joint these bad boys together and make sure that you are flush. This is the area that is the most pressing. You need to make sure that the B ends are flush with this edge of A, okay? So when you're done with that, the distance that should be from here to here, right here, this distance that I am drawing in all the way around, when you're done, all of that I just drew in, all of those should be 6 inches. If those are all 6 inches, you are good to go. If they are not 6 inches, I highly recommend that you push them aside, because when everything folds in on itself, you're gonna have a really hard time not making that 6 inches, all right? So that is step number 1 that you can see in the video. Now, once we have everything together and you have everything brad nailed, that's probably the easiest thing to do. Lift it up, make sure it's all one piece. When you are done, you wanna make sure that you are gluing it down. You can see that we are gluing down around it. We glued down around it, we made sure that we brad nailed it down, and we also clamped it down. If you don't have clamps, brad nail it and try to put some weight on it and just leave it for a little bit. That's probably the easiest thing to do. The second step, and I'm just gonna pause the video real quick. Okay, so we didn't actually do the second step first, but that's okay. You can do either one of them. So the second step that we did was actually step 3, right here. Okay, step 3, where we put in all of the supports on the inside. So we have the U supports, we have the T supports, we have the R and the S supports. All of these are butt joints, and you're not going to see any of them because all of them are going to be flush with your openings that you created before. Now, these are scalable. If you want to adjust how your supports are underneath your board, that is totally fine. The reason why I made these this specific distance, here, I'm gonna get a new sheet. This one got really messed up, right? And this is a pausable moment, okay? So we are done with number 1, okay? Now, if you have all of this down and all of this down, and then this is 6 inches and here 6 inches, in all of its lovely goodness. So this is gonna be 6 inches, this is going to be 6 inches, this is going to be 6 inches, all the way around like that, and then this is 13 inches right there, as it shows. If all of that is good, you are good to go. Hold up, I'm getting a new pen. And we're back with a new Sharpie. Okay, so, let me just check. Oh, that's so much better. All right, step 2, you can either put, this is the E's, the F's, and the D's. If you want to put these on right away, you can, and that's a really easy step. And again, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. The D's, the E's, and the F's are going to be on the second piece of your materials layout sheet of the wood. If you want to make these, so as of right now, they're all butt joints, and the way it looks right now is this. I'll draw like an enlarged version of this in here. Now, in case you don't want to do this like this, what you could do, again, if you have a miter saw and you're good to go, totally fine, because this would probably be easier, and then you only need like a few, or you only need one dimension. But basically this is what it looks like. If you do it like this, then you don't see any plywood. This one, this is a butt joint. This is the way we did it. If you want to do it this way, that works too. As long as the dimension of this long side, so this is D, right here. As long as the dimension of this side from here to here is equal to D, then you are good to go if you want to do it that way. And that dimension, I believe, is 6 inches. Anyways, if you want to do this one, this is a very easy next step. You put them all together, you put them on the corners the way it has here. Make sure that it is lining up. You know what, that's okay. You guys get the idea. So let's say this is your box. You want to make sure that these corners right here, these are tight to this side and this side. You want it tight to these two sides because it's going to be flush with this bottom piece. And on this side, you want it tight to the corner. And when you do that tight to the corner, you're going to see that these pieces on the side, which are the B pieces and the C pieces, right here, this area right there, those should be pretty close to touching. They don't need to be touching, and it doesn't really make that big of a deal because you're going to be putting pieces right here and right here anyway. But if they are close to touching, you're in good shape. So that's step 2, you're good to go. Step 3 is the innards. The innards here, this stuff right here is, oh sorry, not that. This stuff right here is scalable all day long. I'm gonna move it a little closer so you guys can take a better look at it. Here we go. Okay, so that is what the inside looks like, and I'm showing you guys a picture of it. I'm kind of like pointing a stick at it as we speak. This stuff is scalable. The reason why I made these dimensions the way they are is because you can put a book, a regular sized 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in here, like this, like this, like this, like this. And that's landscape from the direction that you're seeing it. So if you're putting in a book sideways into the storage, you can fit those in. And then this one, you can fit a book long ways, portrait style, okay? And this is for the DM spot. This is for the DM. Okay. The stuff that's in here is scalable. If you want to put different kinds of storage in here, that's totally fine. If you want to just leave it blank, put a couple of supports in and maybe have some battle mats under here or something else, that's totally fine. Just know that the further in that it goes, it's going to be harder and harder to find stuff and it might get lost, which is why I didn't make it too deep. Again, scalable, your call. Now, you guys are watching the video, I'm showing you these empty spaces where I say nobody cares about those. We care about those innard spots right there, there, and there, and there. The reason for those is that's where all the storage is going to be. And again, all of this is scalable depending. The dimensions of all this stuff is kind of up to you, but it all needs to be flush. If you take a look at it, the opening that is on these, that is on the B sides, as well as the C1 and C2, they are open and the pieces are flush. That way you don't see anything but the wood that's on the inside. And we are brad nailing stuff together right now and just making sure it's all together. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're gluing, so as you can see in the bottom of the screen, that's where all of the D's, E's, and F's are. So you're seeing here D's, E's, and F's, and on the top of the, and then I'm switching screens right now to the other side where my hand is. That's where the D, E's, and F's are. A couple of you commented and it's like, hey, let's make some dice towers. And I was like, that sounds like an amazing idea. Or potentially, if you wanted to, you can put outlets on it. We wanted a multi-purpose table for this one, so having dice towers wasn't really kind of an option, but I was thinking, and this is just out loud, I'm gonna get a fresh page here. Okay, so what I was thinking of for a quick dice tower, and I'm just gonna give you a section view of what this looks like. So let's say, for instance, that you have your box on the inside. Now, depending on how you attach everything, it might change, but let's say, for instance, this is the inside of your box. Okay. Alright, so let's say for instance that this is the inside of your box and you have not put your top on. Your top is going to be a 6 by 6. This here is the bottom. Okay? So, if you had it like this, what you could do is you could put a hole, let's start with the funnel. So what you could do is you could have a funnel made out of wood or some kind of contraption that goes something like this. So you have a piece of wood here that like attaches right there. I don't know, maybe there's a couple of cuts there, like that, and maybe you put another piece of wood here for support. Same with right here, so you have like, you have support. Man, I can't draw. Okay, here we go. You have support, and then you have support, and then this is just your funnel piece, and then you have another piece that's right here, and right here. Something along these lines. So you can put in, and then you can have support in here, right there, and then you have another piece. So if you wanted to build a dice tower of some kind, you can pop the top off, where maybe you have like a couple of pieces that like keep it in place, maybe like right there and right there, in a couple of other places. And again, this is a section. All right, so this is a section view, basically profile, cutting it through the middle. But then here's your top. You can pop this off like this whenever you want, and you can find a place for it. Maybe it doubles as a little dice tray, just in case. So you pop it off and a couple of people have dice trays. Maybe that could be cool. But basically you have your dice come down here, and then they all fall out, and then there's a hole right there that pops out. Again, this is just a makeshift dice tower. If you want to finagle it, do your best. And you can pause that and take a look at it. Maybe that will work, who knows. And I probably drew that backwards. Huh. Actually, I didn't, but there's your first go at it. I'm gonna try to do my best with what I have. So as of right now in the video, what we're doing is we're gluing the side pieces on. The side pieces here. Let's see if I can get a good view of that. Okay, so the side pieces are for the fold outs. They are the G2s go on the actual base itself, which is what we are gluing on right now. And then the G1s will go on the H pieces or the J piece, depending. But this is, these G2s and G1s are going on the base. All right, this is a pausable moment. If you want to skip this, go ahead. Quick note about the enlarged G piece cutout. What I did was I made these so that they get cut out like this. I put an enlarged plan right here so that you can kind of see what the dimensions are long term. One thing I wanted to mention about this is that when you're cutting it out, what is more important in what we found out was two things. One, okay, cool. All right, so here's the first important thing. Number one, this angle right here, this is very important, because if you have this angle right here, make sure that the long side of, this is G1 and this is G2. Make sure that the long side of G1 and the short side of G2 are equal, and then your angle will go down. The second thing about this closed space up here, you can have a gap. It's okay to have a gap. This gap right here is okay when you're cutting it out, but also make sure where it says 2 5/8 inches and 2 5/8 inches, if there's a gap between them when it gets closed, that is totally fine. You're gonna have an entire piece of wood on top of here, and it's going to be closing on, the overhang. So it doesn't actually, when it closes on the overhang, it's going to be flush with the top of the board, so, or the top of the table. So when you close it, it doesn't have to be completely flush here. If anything, it's better to have a gap. But if you have a gap, make sure that, again, can't stress this enough, the long side of G1 and the short end of G2, right here where these two pieces meet, make sure those are the same length. When you're putting the G1s and the G2s on, all that is just gluing and making sure that it stays in place. How it stays in place is up to you. You can glue and you can clamp it down. We brad nailed ours in because we knew that we weren't going to be using the space as dice towers or storage or whatever you're going to potentially be using it for. It's your call, it's your table. So once those are done and the U's and T's and S's, all the inside storage is all finished, glued down, ready to go, you are ready for the next step. When you are done with step one, that's a terrible check mark. 2 and 3, maybe even minus the outside fold outs. Even if you don't get to there, that's okay. All right, so once you're done with these 3, the next step is going to be twofold. One, you're going to be cutting out holes for your cup holders, which the size is on the actual sheet itself in the middle. And then the other step is going to be attaching piece B, which is the elevated board. We put 2 layers of felt down, and we also covered the entire sheet the entire elevated board with plastic. The reason for this is because we wanted to do the cutouts, we wanted to put the elevated board on, we wanted to put in the next step the P's and the N's, which are the overhangs themselves, and then the thin strips above leaf holders. Once all of this, everything that has to deal with the table, everything that is all one piece inside and on the table is all on, then you stain the entire table. And once you attach the ends and the P's, which is right here, and then you attach the strips on the top, which is right here, here, and here, like that, and those pieces are up here. So you have the P's and the N's right here, and then you have the piece on the top that's attached, that is either the length of the B's or the length of the C's, 0.75 by 0.75, and then the length of the B's and C's. Once you're done with all of that, then you are good to go for staining the entirety of the board, including the leaves. The leaves, there's the middle leaf, the 2 middle leaves, and then the end leaf. So if you take a look at the video, after the holes have been drilled, you see the 2 leaves in the middle, and then you see the 1 end leaf on the end. Once you do this, make sure to take some dimensions before you put these leaves on, because again, your board is going to be a little bit here and there. Now we are moving on to the legs. Now, the legs I kind of made up on the fly. And the reason why I made these legs up on the fly is because I didn't know how tall I actually wanted the table. Most of my friends and I are average height, and we all have specific dimensions for like how tall do we want to sit. My friend, who I built the table for, also had a table that was a specific height, and I said, okay, this thing is 6 inches tall. I want to make sure that the table that he had was going to be the same height as this table when it was all closed. So, all right, so you have a 3/4 inch piece, and then you have you have 6 inches, and then you have 3/4. So all you do is whatever top of height that you want is up to you. If you want it to be, let's say you're replacing this for a kitchen table, then you just take that 6 inches, that's 6.75 inches, and you take the height of your flooring to the top of the table that you want it to be. So let's say it was 40 inches just as a nice round number, and you basically just take 40 inches and you subtract 6.75 inches, which you're going to get 33.25 inches. So what I did was I bought some 4x4s, and these were nicer looking 4x4s. So I took some 4x4s, and I'm going to show you a picture. Actually, the picture that is before is a perfect picture, but I'm going to show you guys a sketch of what I had. If you guys can see right here, this is what I constructed with the table itself. Now, so wait, I'm going to let you guys pause that for a second. This is a pausable moment. This is what happened, okay? So this is a 4x4, the middle is a 4x4, this bottom piece is a 4x4 with a couple of 45-degree cuts on it, and then this right here, these are kind of like base feet, just to give it a little bit more character. I think what I did was I made them the length of 3/4 of the actual table width. So the table width was 42 inches, and 3/4 of that is approximately 31 inches, something like that. So I think I made them 30 inches, or like 28.5 was my other dimension that's coming to mind. I think I made my top like 28.5, and I think I made my bottom like 30 inches or something like that. And then this was a 4x4 piece. A 4x4 is not actually 4x4. Actual dimensions 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So if you had, let's see, this is 3.5 inches and this is 3.5 inches, and I believe I put a 0.75 inches on the bottom. That gives me 7 inches, okay, so 7.75. So again, I'm going to use the 40-inch height as my basis for my design. So I need 33.25 inches. So let's say we're taking it off. Then we take 33.25 and we subtract 7.75. So if you take 7.5 off of this, or sorry, 0.75 off of this, you get 32.5 inches. And then you take 7 off of that and you get 25.5 inches. So if you add 25.5 and then you add the 3.5, 3.5, and then the 0.75 that's on the bottom. All right, this is kind of janky, but this is my style. Okay, so we've got 28.5 inches roughly for the top piece. We've got 3.5, which is this is the 4x4. We've got 3.5 on the bottom, and then we have a 0.75 inch piece on the bottom, and it's kind of like the outline of the actual three. I think I made it I think these are 4x4. Let's say they're 4x4. You nail it, you glue it, you make it look wonderful. And I think I did that so that we could put a pad on the bottom and it would slide very easily. The bottom piece is 30 inches all the way across, and then the piece in the middle here was 25.5. And again, this is off of the 40 inches that I put here. Yours can be scalable. Okay, you can also make these longer if you wanted to. It is your choice, but I believe these dimensions worked for us. Going to the next part of the video, you'll see that everything is attached. I attached everything with this stuff for the legs with pocket holes. If you are a carpenter, or you have other skills that you want to use that are not just pocket holes, that's fantastic. If you don't have a lot of know-how, what I would highly suggest, glue and tons of pocket holes. They are great. I believe I put, if you see here, where I put my pocket holes between this 4x4 and this 4x4, I put 2 on this side, 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and 2 on this side, and that held everything together. The 2x4s that are right here, these are 2x4s cut at a 45-degree angle on each side. I made sure that they were roughly the same size all the way across. Again, depending on your length, it's whatever you want. But what I tried to do was I tried to make sure that the 2x4s that were holding up the piece of wood. So what I tried to do was I tried to make this 3-inch piece right here, this gap between here and the ending piece of the 2x4, I tried to make that about 3 inches, I believe, and then the 45 goes across here, and again, this is a 2x4. And I connected all of these 2x4s to the base, to the top base, and then the middle leg. I connected all of these, each spot, with 2 pocket holes each. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay, so I'm going to stop it for 2 seconds. What I think I did, I took like 3/4 of the base size for the width of the legs, but for between leg, and then here's the table on the top, leg, right here. Okay, so there's your table, there's your 2 legs. What I did was I did about 3/4 of the length of the table. So then I attached a couple of 2x4s. You can see them, they are attached to the 45-degree angles on the base. And the reason for that, on one side I covered it with felt, and on the other side I covered it, I didn't cover it with felt. And then on the top I added another 2x4, and the reason for that is because, alright, so if you're looking at this piece right here, this is kind of like the profile. I put a 45-degree 2x4 right here and a 45-degree 2x4 right there. The length of these was roughly about 45 inches all the way across, and then I pocket holed them into these 45s here. This gave the entire structure more integrity, and the legs itself were, they didn't move as much, like, at all. And then there was another 2x4 that I added right here. This 2x4 right here, and this 2x4 right here. I put felt on the top of both of those, and the reason for that is so that when you put the leaves underneath, the felt on this piece made sure that the leaves didn't get damaged here, and then the felt on the top of this piece made sure that when you put the leaves down, they can just lie down on the felt piece right here. That way it's storage for the leaves. If you don't want that kind of storage for your leaves and you want to do something else with them, or just put them off to the side so you can use the under part of the legs, totally your call. This is just what you're seeing on the screen right now. One more quick thing about the legs attaching to the actual table. I put in 4 pocket holes per side of the actual leg. So here, okay, on each side there was 8 per leg. So like this is a leg and this is a leg. I put 4 on this, I put 4 on this side, 4 on this side, 4 on this side, and 4 on that side. So 4, 6, 8, 4, 8, 12, 16 total. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those pocket holes work great. And if you want to make the legs either longer, shorter, whatever, again, totally your call. However you feel structurally will work the best, that is what I did. Now I'm going to pause it for like 2 seconds so you can kind of see what's going on here. So I'm going to zoom in to this section right here. You see the fold outs being folded out. Now, the unfortunate part was that I did it like this because I had to put the hinges here. I also put some springs that were attached to some hooks. So on the inside profile, I put I put a spring on the inside with a hook and a hook. The reason for that is because I couldn't put the hinge the way I wanted to actually put the hinge on because we couldn't afford them at the time. This is the Shelby solid brash flip top table hinge. These things are not cheap. Like we spent for the entirety of all the hinges, we got little ones that you can get from Lowe's for like a few bucks. But if you can afford these ones, this is the way I highly suggest that you do it. These things are $4.50 a piece. This is a hinge. This isn't for like a pair of hinges. But basically what these bad boys are is instead of having the hinge where the hinge is, I had to put the hinge where I shaded in with the springs. You do not need the springs or the hinge if you do it with these Shelbys. All right, so a couple of disadvantages. Okay, so what you're looking at here, you have to notch out more of the G2 piece, and you need to make sure that the hinge point for the Selby hinge is like right there. That is where the hinge point needs to be. And then you're gonna notch out a little bit of this one and a little bit more of this one. So it kind of digs into the G2, the G2 piece. Oh, that is G3, G2. And then this one is the G1 piece. So you're gonna notch out a little bit less of the G1, a little bit more of the G2, and make sure that the hinge point is in the middle of where the two pieces will touch. When you do it that way, the hinge will pull across the long side your fold out. That is one way that you can do that, and again, the link is in the description below. If you can afford these hinges, that is the way that you should do. That is the way that you can. That is the way that you should construct it. And the hinges are the hardest part, but once you get by those hinges, it'll work. And it might take 2 or 3 times for you to get like the angle right. I highly suggest that you try to get that angle and that hinging bit right before you glue everything on. With all of this said, this was a lot of information and this was a lot to take in, and I highly suggest that at the end of this video, if you're watching this, take a second, go back through, again, watch how we put everything together in my original video, which is in the link in the description below, and then step by step try to go through this. The biggest couple of things that you could do for this table, the first thing is when you're making all of your materials and you're making yourself a custom table, to make sure that you dimension the best you can. The second thing is that when you have the dimensions of the space that you want, make sure that when you're starting to cut all the pieces out, cut them out one by one, take your time, and make sure to measure from what you've cut instead of just throwing down everything like we did the first time. I wish I would have had time to do that. The third thing is when you're staining everything, make sure to do it all at once. It gives it much more of an even coat. And for all the areas that are exposing the plywood, you can either give it that rustic feel and leave it there. You can cut 45s on some of the pieces to make sure that none of them show any of the plywood, or you could find a way, for instance, you can put some heat-on veneer, strip wood basically, on the actual surface, make it look a little nicer. That's totally fine as well. The third thing is the hinges. However you want to do the fold outs, again, like the fold out is just going to come out, and those dimensions themselves are not scalable. If you want to make it 7 inches tall and then have 7-inch fold out, that way you've got 14 inches of space, that's fine. But make sure that your base and your fold out piece are exact, the fold out length, not the entirety of the length, but basically where it's folding out and where it's folding back into, both of them are the same dimension. 5.5, 6, 7, 3 for all I care, it doesn't really matter. But the height of the table, the dimension of the fold out piece, and the dimension of where you're going to be going, all 3 of those need to be the same. So 6, 6, and 6, it's basically a box. As long as that's a square, everything should work out just fine. As far as the length issues of the entire table, a lot of that is scalable. The storage underneath, a lot of that is scalable. You don't have to put felt on it if you don't want to. If you want to, wrap it in plastic before you stain everything, just because you can actually put it in. If you don't, then it's going to make things really, really hard. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to keep coming back, hit that subscribe button. The PDF pages for the game table are in the description below. The cup holders that we used are in the description below, and the hinges that I wanted to use are in the description below. If any of you guys have any questions about this, if you want to leave comments, that's fine, but what I highly suggest is that you go to my Facebook page, like that Facebook page, and then send me a message on that page. That way I can help you if you want to customize it, if you have some questions about dimensions or how it's all put together. That's totally fine, but I want to make sure that you guys have this stuff. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Go to my Facebook page. I will be more responsive there. I got more videos coming soon. Stay tuned. Handyman's coming.